What's this on the screen? Is it Dead by Daylight Reviews? Nah, Q don't do those anymore. He hasn't done them in a long time. What would he be doing right now? Welcome to another Dead by Daylight Reviews. I figured I'd come back to this forum and see what's going on. I gotta sign in right quick. Give me a moment. There we go. Let's see what's new. We finally filled a page up. Well, no, not quite. This is one of the reasons why I stopped doing them, by the way. Content is literally just not being pushed out as much anymore. I mean, Behavior has released. Sadako went in and released new PTB, went in and released a whole bunch of other things. So the community's been happy. Happier. So nobody really has been making any type of creations or anything like that. Plus, they take time, which is a good thing. People generally start posting on the creations forum when they get tired of doing the same thing over and over, when they feel as though Behavior, needs to start implementing more and more changes to their game. Or they're like, when there's going to be another update. And this is kind of a gauge. This creation review is a gauge on whether or not the community's happy or not. If nobody's posting anything, obviously, you have the people that, generally post, but you'll have people posting multiple times. This is acceptable. I haven't done an actual review besides, a couple here or there in the last, I'd say, month. And this is about as far as we've gotten. This is good. Back in the day, if I missed one day, back when there was a huge gap in between, I'm talking like 6+ months in between, actual like good updates for the game. I missed one day of doing reviews and I got pushed back onto the other page because people were flooding this forum with different ideas back to back to back to back. That's bad. If you see that your community's posting a lot of creation ideas and things like that, that should be a direct influence into you as a company saying that your community's bored and they're looking for something new. If they're smart, they'll already have things planned, and then they'll have backups for those backups. And then a tertiary backup for if the community just gets unwieldy. Like, for instance, let's say prop hunt or hide and seek mode for Dead by Daylight. If they were smart, they would create that shit and then keep it under lock and key and just, whenever they have excess time, have somebody, a particular very, very small team that when they have excess time, work on it, design it, build it up, make it amazing. If it's prop hunt, I mean, prop hunt really ain't that hard. You can literally use the maps as they are and just add, a couple of props here or there, and you're fine. Especially that new Haddonfield map. It would be very good for prop hunt because there's different buildings that you can go into and hide in the other buildings. And it'd keep you isolated to hiding in particular buildings as opposed to being able to run around the entire map. But if you do allow them to run around the entire map, it's not that bad because the map isn't incredibly huge. That would be a good prop hunt map to start off with. Plus, they just redone it, so I mean, updating it again with a prop hunt and all of that. It is the most current map, technically, because it's the last one worked on and has updated shit. So you should be able to easily incorporate prop hunt or hide and seek or anything like that type of game modes into it. And I would develop that shit and I would put it under lock and key. And I would never talk about it, never release it to the community until, something happens and you need content out. Put it under like your emergency button. When the game starts maybe failing because people are tired of playing the same thing over and over, you're releasing content, but people still ain't happy. They want something new. Or, you go into a slump and you ain't really releasing good content or something, just have that emergency button that you can push and be like, let's deploy this. This will keep the community happy because it's something completely different from the base game. People will have fun, they'll do stuff with it, etc., etc. We've been working on this for a long time. Let's just announce that we'll be implementing a new mode and, put that on PTB, let the community go in, get the final fixes and touches on that and see what they think. And that'll shut the community up for a little bit. While that's happening, you release your secondary thing, being, maps and hot fixes and things like that that are major. While you're working on your main thing, being, new killers, new maps implemented, etc., etc., survivors, etc., etc. And eventually, as you get used to this 3-stage system, you can then turn that into a 4-stage system. And if you have a 4-stage system, that can be akin to seasons. So once a year, or once every 3 months, but more importantly, once a year per each team you have. In the December or winter time, your hot fixes, your super huge hot fixes, not your minor shit that you've replaced, like a huge, big ass hot fix revamp of the system, that needs to be fixed. You go in, you clean up what you need to get cleaned up, etc., etc. Happens in wintertime. So the community can expect that, a big thing's gonna come out once a year every wintertime. Fall time is generally where where you're going to want to be implementing either I would say a map, honestly. Every fall time, you'd probably want to implement a map because you have your Halloween shit and things like that you always bring out as well. You can combo that with a map and you can just kill two birds with one stone. You can get your Halloween thing out, you can release another map. You can get your Christmas shit ready, all of the, events that happen from October on for the game. You can push that out as well and get that ready for fall time. So you would generally want a map that comes out in fall time. Springtime? No, no. Summertime. Excuse me. Summertime. We're going backwards. Summertime, you have to have a killer out. You have to have a killer out with summertime. That's when people are getting off of school for summer break. That's when people are on vacation. That's when people are actually actively doing things, etc., etc. Now, why summertime and not a time like, winter or something like that when people are confined to their homes? Because you want to get the younger generation involved into the game, while the older generation is just going to play whenever they can. The younger generation's tied down by school and all of that. But, the gamers out there that are looking for new games to play, if a huge, release happens then, as well as movies and everything else that generally come out in the summer, you can tie that shit together and create, these amazing effects, amazing things that happen. So between spring, beginning summer, basically, is when you can really push and get that new killer out and it'll be effective. And in the beginning, springtime is when you need to focus on new perks, new survivors, things like that. But more importantly, you need to do perk revamps and things like that. That's the more important thing. I loop survivor in with it because if you come out with a new survivor, a sort of a tease for the new killer that's going to come out during that time, I think that'd be a powerful campaign type situation that you can push. People are going to be looking forward to the new set of perks that are coming out, the survivor that's going to be, posted at the end, obviously at the end of spring. The survivor's going to come out right before, the killer and all of that comes out. So they can almost come out together. I mean, there's going to be a public test beta that incorporates end spring and beginner summer. So it's going to be the same thing. But they have that locking system now that they can extend their public test beta from the beginning of spring to the beginning of summer. Keep it about 2 weeks. The beginning half, or the end half of spring, you unlock the new survivor and you let the people play as the new survivor against your already existing killers. Then when summertime comes, you unlock the killer as part of the summertime update, and then people are comfortable playing that survivor against regular killers because that's the new content. That's what you want people to test, is that new survivor and whether it works or not. Then you take that and you implement your killer. Now, people on the killer side of things are going to want to play, that. Some survivors will switch to the killer side. Some will want to see what it's like being up against the killer. So then you add the killer in at the end of the public test beta for the last week. And then you have the survivor and killer playing against each other. Then at the end, you release, everything that you find out towards, farther towards the end, middle to end of summer, when you actually get that full release. That gives you, if everything goes well, you can release it immediately at the beginning of summer. If things don't go well, you can release it towards the middle or end of summer, depending on, what you need to do. You can also hold multiple public test betas if need be. It gives you time to actually reflect and think about it and go in and as a committee or as a team and, see things through. And since you have planned content coming out at different times of the year, you can also, between the planned content, add in your second game that you're making and everything else. I learned this during my HR certificate. I have a diploma for HR, actually. I can't afford to pay for that dumbass test you have to pass to get your HR certifications and all of that, or the certification to become an official HR person. There is a specific test that you have to pass. I mean, I would pass it with flying colors. Shit's easy as hell. All you gotta do is just pay attention. Very, very easy to pass. I said I 100%ed all of my lessons and things with HR. It's almost like I was a natural born HR leader. But past that, putting things in a specific order and letting the community, know what's going to come out each month, I think is a lot better than popping an update here or there saying, we're working on this, guys. It'll come out eventually. Or randomly, hey, we're making changes to perks. Come join our PTB. And it's just like, yeah, but also no. I would prefer it to be on schedule. I mean, best case scenario or worst case scenario, you can hold four different PTBs, four different systems, or you can hold one big one, which is what the extra time, and you can focus on, small things in each thing. Now, obviously, they're not going to be like the main focus. They're just going to be, the bulkhead of the projects, where you have four main things being changed a year. Obviously, there's a lot more work that goes into a game, maintenance, issues, problems, and things like that. But I mean, you've been dealing with that for how many years now? For a long, long amount of time. I think Dead by Daylight's been out like what, 7 years or something crazy? I don't know. A decent amount of time. Maybe it's 5 years. Maybe it's more. I don't know. But they've been out for a long amount of times, and they've always been actively dealing with things as they came their way. So having a schedule and then dealing with things as they come your way, like you're used to, should help you improve your efficiency and all of that, which will overall improve, the time you have to work on your game and all of that. Whichever one we're talking about. Now, that game that they've been talking about being in the making, because this is the what, third or fourth year since it's been in the making. UE5 and all of that's coming out. So, if they didn't originally start making things in UE4 and they use UDK, all of that work they had to do is going to have to be redone. But I mean, obviously, when Epic started saying things about UE5 and all of that last year, I doubt behavior still continued to build up a project they're going to have to redo anyways. So they probably just jumped on the UE4 thing. Actually, Dead by Daylight's made in Unity. If I think about it, I think it's actually made in Unity. So never mind. Rocket League's made in UE, Unreal Engine. Dead by Daylight, I think, is made in Unity. I'm getting my shit backwards. I was gonna talk about Rocket League too, but I went into a Rocket League conversation during a Dead by Daylight stream. Whoops. I had to think about that for a second. I was like, Dead by Daylight's not made in Unreal Engine, sir. I think it's made in Unity. Either way, I think I've burnt off enough time. That's about 20 minutes worth of talking. A long story short, which I tell a lot of businesses, or at least I try to convey to a lot of people that work either for or with other businesses. Walk into your boss's office and let them know it ain't even gonna be your boss's manager, anybody. I mean, look, hang on, let me sort this out. If you work under a particular boss that you're in communication with all the time, you're in talking terms with them, you're on good terms, etc., etc. Hell, even if you ain't on good terms, you're probably on your way out of the business anyway, so still, walk into their office and let them know, hey, you need an HR system, or hey, your HR system isn't very good. Your workers are unsatisfied, this and that and another. Talk to your coworkers, see what can actually be done, and take on that role as an HR official. Now, do not make a list of things that people are complaining about and that people hate and then give it to your boss. That's a sure way to get yourself fired. But if people, their feet are constantly hurting They wish they had more breaks, you know. It's getting to the point to where a lot of people are talking about quitting. You're going to lose a substantial amount of your workforce because of it. Or maybe this person's going through some shit and they would like some time off, but they're afraid to ask for it because, you know, they're one of the higher working people in the facility. And they're afraid to ask for time off, even though they're suffering or something like that. You can be that pseudo HR person and be like, you know, hey, boss, me and the crew have been talking, and, you know, our feet are fucking hurting. We're barely able to walk. And I'm afraid that you're going to lose a significant amount of your workforce because of this particular issue. Is there anything that you can do, like giving us an extra 10-minute break later on in the day or something like that? And of course, you're not just going to be able to think of shit on the spot. You're going to have to take what your coworkers are saying and formulate a plan. If you're bad at plan and you're bad at, you know, things like that and accommodating other people, then I mean, pass this on to your HR official or somebody who is more suited for an HR position. Hell, go online and get a consultation with an HR professional and give them this list of complaints that your employees have and the type of environment that you work in and all of that, and work with that official to create a plan. Once you have a plan, take that plan in and present it briefly to your boss. Do not tell them everything that is inside of the plan. Do not hand them the plan. That plan is yours property. It's yours and that HR person who you consulted with's, you know, plan. Because what's going to happen is, if you go in, you walk into their office and you hand them their plan, they're going to say thank you, and anything that they implement, the employees are going to be happy, but you're going to get nothing from that. And it's not a greed thing or anything like that. Why I'm saying that. It's got nothing to do with money. It's got nothing to do with anything. What this is going to do for your boss is it's going to essentially spoon feed him a solution to a problem. And then from then on, anytime the employees have any type of issues, they're going to expect your ass or somebody else or one of his employees to walk in and let him know what exactly the issue is. And you guys, who are just doing your job and all of that, are going to have a side job as pseudo HR. You're going to become your own HR department as you're working, and that's not good. The HR department handles things that employees should never have to worry about. The employees should just show up to work, do the work, get paid, and go home. That's what your job is, whatever your job title says, and all of the details in said job. That is your job title. That is what you do. That is what you're contracted to do. They cannot make you do anything that you aren't contractually obligated to do. Don't be that dumbass that's walking around doing everything that their boss says because you want to impress your boss, or, oh, well, this is a job. I mean, I'm supposed to do everything my boss says. Like, no. If you're contracted to, I don't know, what's a basic job that doesn't have dual, you know, things you can do? Let's say you're a mechanic and you were signed on and contracted to do engine and transmission repairs. That's it. You take engine and transmission apart, you put them together. If your boss tells you to go clean the toilet, go shovel the snow outside, go become a lube tech is what we call them, the guy that do the maintenance and shit and lube up, you know, underneath, you know, the cars and all of that, or trucks. the maintenance guys, you know, that fill the fluids and shit in the car. You call them either maintenance or you're a lube tech, you know. And if you're telling that guy to, you know, clean toilets, sweep floors, shovel snow, and do all this other kinds of shit, that person is actively doing that shit on their own accord. They're asking you to do something. They're not instructing you. They're not telling you to do something. It's the equivalent of an ask. You have all the rights to say no if it's not part of your job. Now, if you're working behind the counter at a storefront and your boss tells you to clean the toilet, obviously that's part of your job title. But I mean, everybody that's there has that part of their job title. Even your manager does. So, I mean, if your manager ain't cleaning fucking toilets too, maybe ask them to do it every once in a while. You ain't gotta be, you know, upfront about it and confrontational about it. You ain't gotta yell, you ain't gotta argue, you ain't gotta say anything like that. It'd be like, you know, if they've asked you to clean toilets 2 weeks in a row, be like, hey, manager, how about you clean the toilet every once in a while and give me a break so I can, you know, get my other jobs and priorities done a little bit faster today, you know? If your manager's in there, you know, fucking around, not doing shit, sitting in a chair texting, while you're running around doing all of these things, ask them for help. Because not every manager is a good manager. Some people are just appointed there because they've been there for a long time. Some people are appointed there because they have the education or experience. Some people get appointed there due to unfortunate circumstances. I know a guy that ended up getting a huge promotion due to unfortunate circumstances. Those unfortunate circumstances being all the other employees quit, so he just got promoted to that shit. By company policy, the role had to be filled. Everybody else between him and that role quit, so he got sent to that shit. Guess what? He wasn't suited for that role and ended up getting fired because of it. Wasn't his fault. By company policy, somebody had to fill the role. He was there. He took the job, even though, I mean, he thought that he could handle the shit, but we all knew that he couldn't handle the shit. He was dumb accepting that role. I would have taken a higher up role, but not that role, and I would have forced them to bring somebody in from another store to cover that role. But back then, you're a kid. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Somebody offers you power, you take that shit. Even if you fail at it, you have a good mark on your resume, and you can stand up and say, you know, I was this and that and another for one time in my life. And then when they ask, well, why aren't you that now? You say, well, I got tired of that shit. Waking up every day in the morning, having to go through that, going through all of the other shit, you know, all that. I just wanted to live a simpler life. Or something like that. You give a good excuse, not, I got fired. If you just say, well, I got fired, they're gonna say, so this guy who has all this experience got fired from his job. I wonder what that is. Which is going to prompt them to call and ask, why did you guys fire this particular guy? And if you ain't got connections within your work and you find somebody who's brutally honest, they'll be like, well, he wasn't suited for the job. He got promoted to that shit due to unfortunate circumstances. Once we got our labor back and all of that, we had to fire him. Or we demoted him back to his old job and then he got mad and quit. Either or. So, well, keep in mind. Just keep in mind. A collection of copyrighted images and copyrighted videos. All of this is copyrighted from a video or movie or something that's already existed. I'm gonna be nice and say, well, I'm not reading it. She could have cited her sources somewhere. I'm not seeing any sources cited or anything like that. I say, if your if these sources of where you got your images and pictures aren't already cited and given credit, please do, or mods will delete your post and eventually ban you in the future if it keeps. And you can fix that. If the sources of where you got your images and pictures are the same thing. If the sources of where you got your images and videos aren't already cited and given credit, please do, or mods will delete your posts and eventually ban you in the future. If they notice this. If they notice the post. Because, I mean, my luck, I'll say this, and this post will never be seen by another mod. That seems simple enough. I only got 52 posts. Lamau. If the sources of where you got your images and videos aren't already cited and given credit, please do, or mods will delete your post and eventually ban you in the future if they notice the post. I mean, this is literally taking from a movie, an old video. All of this. So, I mean, without me even going over this backstory is an overview of the movie. Physical description, literally a picture of that shit. Power, extremely short. Special attacks and all of that, extremely short. That's the breadth, or that. There to there is the only important part of that. Add-ons idea subject to change. Perks. So, again, this is a polished turd. This is the reason why I'm not going over this. All of the content of this particular thing, you got this, which isn't correct, by the way. I got this little portion here, and you got this little portion from there and there. That's the only content that's part of this. The rest of this has been stolen from that particular movie, so I will not be going over this. And the ones that I generally skip, that's generally what I look for and see, and I'm like, you didn't design this. This isn't a unique killer designed by you. Or this isn't a unique killer that's based off something and designed by you and incorporated into the game. It's not how that works when you're trying to do something like that. Oh, because I posted on it, it went up to the top. I was about to say, damn, she banned me that quick? A test your luck killer concept, the gambler. See, I was with you until you called him the gambler. A test your luck killer concept I have, during my course of reviews, have stated 4 or 5 different ways to incorporate that particular aspect. Hmm. Um, Somebody forgot to put perks in, apparently. I read from here to here, and I'm gonna stop because if I read that, I probably won't do the review. No, 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 and again, no. This killer makes 0 sense. Oh boy, what am I about to get myself into? The Gambler by Millard. So I'm not pronouncing that the other way. A killer that can randomly obtain other killers' powers. Your shit reminds me of Talset from the Turok days. Talset can press the change weapon button to pull out any weapon in the game, but it was random as he was running around. Talset also incorporated a special weapon that only he could use called the chest burster. It was charged. It shot an alien egg into your chest, and it should eventually cause your chest to burst, and the egg would pop out and then die. Very strong weapon. It was an insta kill, but it gave you a time limit after you got hit with it. But again, as you press the switch weapon button, you would pull out a different weapon. Sometimes you'd pull the same weapon out like 2 or 3 times as you're switching through to find a powerful weapon. If anybody engaged you and you didn't have a good weapon, selected to actually fight them, you had to do the best you could with whatever weapon. But if you pulled out a good weapon, then you could fight with it and, destroy your opponents and all of that. Each weapon, if I remember correctly, it either had half ammo or like only a clip or a magazine, or I don't know what the hell you'd call it, because you'd have one ammo slot available for that item unless it was an unlimited item. You wouldn't have a lot of ammo. But I guess Turok Rage Wars, as well as the name of the game, Turok Rage Wars, I don't think they actually had a lot of ammo for each weapon, or for most weapons, now that I think about it, so it might have been full ammo. But Talset was a fun character to play as. He was the final boss of the game, by the way. He would literally just, as you faced him, because it was more like a deathmatch style setup. So as you faced him, he would hit you with just different weapons. Sometimes it would be, a weak weapon. Sometimes it would be that chest burster. You just never knew. Whatever he had in his hand, that's what he'd come at you with. Now, Talset, though, as he takes damage, they did code him to use specific weapons. So once he takes, like I say, a third of his health, he'd pull out like the plasma blaster. I don't remember the name of it. And things like that. So he had, exploit proof or unfortunate luck proof to where he, he would always have a strong weapon at least 3 points in the match that you fought him with. So there were no easy wins. You still had to play at least some. But yeah, how's that? I'm going off of my memory. All of this might not be 100% accurate because I'm going off of my childhood memory back in Nintendo 64 days. but that is how I remember things going. At least as accurate as I can remember things going. But there you go. That's what this killer reminds me of. Alright. Its power is power slot. Power slot is power is slot. Slot machine. A slot machine is placed on top of every generator. They're all switched on at the start of the match. And you can play a machine to get a random power item, after which the machine will be switched off. It'll automatically switch on again after 2 minutes. So, oh, okay. Alternatively, an off machine will be switched on when any survivor works on the gen below it. Playing a machine on top of a work gen will also kick the gen and count as kicking the gen for perks interaction. You can only carry one power item at a time. Playing a machine while carrying an item will automatically replace it with the new item. Okay. Issue. Why are the slot machines on top of the generators, and why are the slot machines readily available to use at all times? Because, I mean, what's the point in having different slot machines? You're going to go to the generator that the survivors are working on. You're going to use the slot machine to get an item, as well as kicking the generator. Pick up said item, and then chase the survivor. Or you might just leave the item sit and just use it to get the kick on the generator and then pick up items later on. Because, I mean, if the survivor elects to go back to that generator in the future, you can just grab that shit and then chase them immediately without having to kick that generator, if it's a good enough item. The problem I have is, how is the slot machine getting power from a generator that has no power in it? As we know, electricity-wise and everything else, in Dead by Daylight and in real life, everything requires enough electricity to do things. You notice that the generators, until they are fully repaired, the light on the top of them, a little ass light bulb, or the light bulb in buildings connected to them, they flash. Once it gets completed, they get a full circuit and they light up. And that's how you know that a generator's been completed, because the light bulb on top is completely lit. Then, most of the power gets directed to the exit gate. It takes 5 generators to power 2 exit gates in this case. So these generators don't put out a lot of electricity or anything like that, despite how big they are. They only have enough power to power 2 exit gate switches. And then the lights and everything that are in the map, essentially. That's it. So, again, you putting a big ass slot machine on top of that shit don't make sense. And I don't even know why you would want a slot machine on top of the generator. I mean, I understand the whole you can kick a generator and do everything that you need to do at one point in time. You know, you walk over, you play the slot machine, it kicks the generator. You can grab the item or chase the survivor, either or, and continue the chase. But why? Why not just have the slot machines just placed throughout the map that you can stop and play? Then, 2, make it to where you can play the slot machine regularly for just random luck, or you get a token or something, a blood token, every time you hit a survivor to play and guarantee you a second tier item. And if you down a survivor, you'll get a third tier token, and then that token guarantees you a better weapon from the slot machine. So it's still luck based off the picks, but you can narrow it down and get more power as you down more survivors. Like, this is a decent base to set things off with. I don't recommend putting the slot machine on top of generators. I would just give your killer enhanced movement after interacting with the slot machine, if that's what you're worried about. Give them 10% haste for like a couple of seconds after interacting with the slot machine. That can be used in chases. You know, if a survivor is foolish enough to run by a slot machine, you can go through, pull that shit, get that haste, and get up that survivor's ass a couple of seconds to get a little extra distance and speed on them. But again, weird. Two, survivors, that's every survivor is allowed to carry one item with two add-ons in that item. So that's four items with it could be 8 add-ons going up against a singular killer. Why would you ever leave this particular killer with only one item that they can use? Not even in Mario Kart do they leave you with just one item. They usually give you, you know, one item that you can use and actively hold, and then one item in reserve. So, I mean, having one item makes this power almost fucking stupid. You should definitely allow them to hold at bare minimum two items. One item in reserved as, you know, kind of a, oh, excuse me, safety measure. And one item to use as they come up on survivors. Now, before I go any farther, my question is, what do you mean when you say that you can use the other killer's powers? Because, like, is this going to be an equivalent of increasing your speed by using Legion? Or are you going to get the, you know, the deep wound status effect? Again, are you going to get the speed from the hillbilly, or are you going to pull a chainsaw out of your fucking ass that doesn't exist? I guess you could get it from a slot machine, but that's no. You'd have to make it like a talisman that you like hold up into the air or some shit, and then the shit comes out to you. So it should take time to summon whatever it is. When it goes to like the doctor, are you gonna use his static shock attack? Or a static blast attack? Or a static shock attack, or whatever the fuck they're called now? The pig. Are you gonna give them a reverse bear trap, or are you gonna give them the ability to crouch? Or we're just gonna go main powers. You're gonna get Ghostface's Night Shroud. Or are you gonna give him the stalking ability? Because guess what? Ghostface can't stalk unless he's in Shroud. So which part of that are you gonna pull? Instead of taking direct powers, you should definitely take aspects of powers. Like Trapper, for example. Giving yourself a trap that you can place down wherever you want on the map is fun. It's just a little bonus and all of that, you know? Boop. Put a trap down wherever you want. You have one active trap throughout that. Might catch a survivor off guard if you place it right. That's fun. But if you compare you being able to put down a trap to, let's say, Bubba's chainsaw, there's issues. So there needs to be some standalone system that separates everything into tiers instead of relying on just sheer pure ass luck. Because you realize that the good things like Bubba's chainsaw is going to be one of the top tier things that you can grab in some situations. And the top tier items, if we're going off slot machine logic, are going to be harder to obtain. So in this case, you're only gonna have like 3 to 5 items at the super rare, picks. And you're gonna have like 20 to 30 different things that are just low tier, useless for this particular killer. So how do you balance this? How do you make everything have worth? What is your system? And from what I'm reading here, you have no system. You just pull the shit and hope you get lucky. And if you don't get lucky, you're behind. Because it's not like you can just play the shit again. Like, no, you have to wait 2 minutes or you have to go to another machine. You also, at least as of now, I haven't read any farther, neglected to give your killer any type of ability to play. Because if you don't want to use the slot machines and you just play this killer, he's literally just a mouse one killer that can interact with something. Not a good base. You have no map pressure, you have no gen pressure, you have no chase pressure. Your killer should have one of those by base. If you have neither of those, and you also have no power that you can readily use, because you have to go to play this slot machine and all of that, which I don't even know how long that goes. I've been to plenty a casino in my time, but there's no timing or anything like that that's specific to them. Some spin for what seem like forever, some are instantaneous spins. So this ain't good enough. You should have put a lot more time and effort into your main power and then distributed everything accordingly. Now I see where some of the problems are coming. You also didn't fulfill one of the basic things. Map pressure, chase pressure, gen pressure. You have to have one of those, so your killer is missing some sort of secondary power or secondary ability that helps them actually move back and forth. Because I mean, at worst case scenario, if somebody says fuck the slot machine or they already have an item in their hand, make it to where they can just teleport in between the slot machines if they have an item. Because they can't really interact with another thing or they'll lose whatever item and effect that they have in play. So if they have something good that they want to keep, then they can't interact with any other, slot machines and pick up the item that it has, or they'll lose their good item. So make it to where if you have an item in your hand, you can teleport between slot machines. If you put the slot machines on gen, it's very bad, but it is considered or part of gen pressure. And then from there, try to balance things out and try and go in a direction that supplements that. But like I said, I haven't read the perks or anything like that. So, I mean, there might be a perk that actually helps this killer that doesn't make any other killer OP. So I will continue to move on. The power items are single-use versions of the other killer's power. So you do get one trap. Trapper. A trap can't be recollected, obviously. Only 3 can exist at one time, setting a 4th one will erase the oldest one. That's a dumb limit. You know how long it's going to take throughout all of these that you have, and you're probably going to have to add more, but throughout all of those, in these random ass pools, to actually get 4 traps, you're going to either have to be lucky or unlucky, depending on what you're trying to go for. Person in the world. Don't set a limit to the number of traps. That can just be a strategy. That can just be a strategy. Stay at one slot machine or go back and forth between slot machines till you get enough traps and then trap shit. Obviously, if you do get this trap, you're going to want to trap something like a powerful loop, or you're going to want to trap one of the exit gates. Get rid of this hard limit. Make as many as possible can exist on the map. You said, again, if the survivors are unlucky, and if this particular killer is lucky, then he gets the advantage for having a lot of traps. If he's unlucky, and the survivors are lucky, he probably won't have a lot of traps. Leave it up to RNG. Wraith. You get to cloak and uncloak once. That does not say anything. Get rid of this description and add a description to this. Are you still affected by Lightborn? Or Lightborn? Lightburn. Can you still be light burned? Is it the same exact on everything at the top? One, you need to mention if it's the same exact powers. Or if, well, I don't know, because it says it's single-use versions of other killer power, but that's not entirely true now, is it? Because a single-use version of that would literally be just one trap. Trapper doesn't have any limits, so it's not exactly the killer's power. If it is exactly the killer's power, then we can go off of something like this. And that's what I'm going to go by. I'm going to go by literal definitions, literal words. That's what I'm going to stick with. Trapper's traps do not erase an older trap. So it's going to be one trap that you get from this. And you place that shit down. Now, it says a single use of the killer's power. Trapper actually starts with 2 traps. Pretty sure Trapper by default starts with 2 traps. So you would get actually 2 traps, not 1 trap, since we're going by the literal thing. Wraith, you get to cloak / uncloak once. Wraith also gets a speed boost after uncloaking. So are we going by full power description or partial power description? By this is partial power description. If we're going by full power description, Wraith is going to uncloak and get his boost. If we're going partial power, then this guy only gets a trap. You get the cloak and uncloak, but you don't get the boost of speed, effectively making that useless. Well, not useless, but very, very weak. So, literal power-wise gives this you the undetectable status effect, which I said I'm going by literal anyway. You'll keep the undetectable status effect, your terror radius will disappear, your red stain will disappear, etc., etc. And this creator needs to limit or keep this exactly how the powers are for other killers. If not, you're going to have a lot more work ahead of you. Hillbilly / Bubba, you get the chainsaw sprint / dash once. You cannot put Hillbilly and Bubba together. They're different. Hillbilly runs with a chainsaw. It is a lot different than Bubba's chainsaw swipe. Bubba, you have full control as you're running around with the chainsaw. Just try not to bump into anything. Hillbilly, you run till you bump into something and that's the end of it. You cannot compare both of those together. This should just be Hillbilly. You chainsaw sprint / dash once. Then Bubba should be after that. You get his chainsaw ability for however much time it lasts. Nurse, you get the blink once. We're going off of literal powers. You'll get double blink, and then you'll suffer the cooldown, and that's going to be the end of it. Hag, a trap. See, this is where your inconsistencies are not are coming into play. Nurse, you get the blink once. There's no cooldown, there's no effect, there's no anything after that. You just get a free blink. Or hag, you get a trap, but then you can teleport to it, but only 3 can exist at one time. The 4th one gets rid of the other thing. Doctor, 1 static blast, no madness. Why? If there's no madness buildup, why incorporate Doctor? If anything, that's literally just radar. Instead of putting Doctor's name in this, take Doctor out and put in a random effect that allows you to just see auras or something and make that your killer's effect that you can get. His special effect, that if he jackpots, he gets a special effect. I guarantee you, when you were thinking about all of this, you didn't even incorporate a jackpot. But we'll see. Maybe you did incorporate a jackpot. We'll see. Huntress slash Deathslinger. 1 shot. That makes no fucking sense because the Huntress throws hatchets that literally damage, and that's the end, while the Deathslinger hooks into somebody and pulls them towards them, and then applies the deep wound status effect. Different. Separate those. Clown, 1 bottle. What the fuck does that mean? You don't even know these killers that you're talking about. Clown has 2 sets of bottles. One that hampers survivors, and one that buffs the clown. So what the fuck are you talking about? 1 bottle. You're saying you get to choose between the 2? If so, you need to state this. Spirit, you get to phase walk once for 5 seconds. That's a waste. You might as well just give them a haste status effect. Again, you need to have things that happen when you don't get your particular thing. Because it's not really luck or gambling or anything like that if there's no lose. The whole point of gambling is you either win or you lose, but you don't always get a reward. So whenever your slots don't line up and they don't get a particular power, you need to think of effects to where, you know, what they get in replace of that. Speed boost, exposing all survivors or something like that. If they get a jackpot or something stupid, you know, makes sense. Legion, you get the Feral Frenzy once for 10 seconds. Feral Frenzy would be a terrible thing because of the cooldown that is associated with it. They decreased it to 3 seconds, but I mean, still. If you're at a slot machine, they essentially kicking it and getting something, and you pull out Legion's Feral Frenzy, you're not going to be very happy. Now, if you're running in between generators and you get it, it's not as bad, but if you're coming up on a survivor, it's going to be a kick in the balls. Trickster, you get 15 blades. Why 15 blades? You gave the Deathslinger slash Huntress 1 throw. Why do you get 15 blades with the Trickster? Why not just make it to where you throw 1 blade? If the blade hits, X amount happens. If not, it doesn't. You can make it very simple and just make it to where you get a perfectly thrown blade. If they get hit with it, they build up half of that Trickster's, you know, whatever the fuck that gauge is called. It never decreases. So if you get that particular power twice and you hit the same person, that's essentially insta hit. Or do something like that. If you miss, no harm, no foul. But you can something enter throw state. Oh, you can only enter throw state once. Xing it will discard all remaining blades. But it takes 8 to hit. And his throws are inaccurate as fuck, especially without his add-ons or anything like that. So I don't know how you're gonna balance the trickster. I would take him out all the way, to be honest with you, because there's no way you're gonna get 8 hits and 15 blade throws, even if the person's standing in front of you and you're throwing at them. Good luck. Tentacle. 1 tentacle strike. Mutation rate 2, no contamination. Why not? If there's no contamination, you're gonna have to get the tentacle twice. Actually, no. If there's no contamination, you can never do damage with your tentacle. So you can literally only break a pallet. Again, why pull Nemesis's name into that and just make it to where you can break a pallet for free? Or increase the pallet speed of your next break? Of course, some killer powers can't be readily converted to single-use versions, hence why they aren't all here. Why? Oni's Demon Dash would work just fine. It allows you to zoom around the map, it allows you to keep control of what's going on, and gives you an insta-down. Michael Myers is tier 3. Or, stalking effect in general. Scratch mirror effect. Or if we're going just off the base power of stalking, it's still good to be able to see where people are, even if you don't necessarily see them. And you can hook that with his power. While you have that Michael Myers' stock, or his stalking ability, you're essentially invisible. You keep everything that he keeps in tier 1. Your speed obviously is going to decrease ever so slightly, but everything that's associated with tier 1, that's what you get. And there's a lot of other killers that you can incorporate their power into single-use versions. You're just not thinking about it. You didn't put time and thought into this. This is some shit that you wrote in one sitting. You went through, you said, and then you posted it. Again, people can tell whether you've spent time on something or whether you're just bullshitting on it. You started off with something good and then you started bullshitting because you see that it's going to take you a long time to get this together. I'm not going to go any farther, but he does have a thing, which if you don't get any one of those, you can get something from that, like I suggested earlier. That is what this is. Add-ons, things like that. Perks. Dishonor on your family. After kicking a gen, reveal the aura of the survivor furthest from you and the auras of any survivor that's within 10 minutes, 10 meters of them. For 15 seconds, are you a fucking idiot? You realize that's like almost 4 times the effect of barbecue and chili. You only need 4 seconds. You don't need all of that aura reading. You don't need time to get to them. You just want to know where they are. This does not help your killer at all. Again, if you want to make it to where he can get to that particular person, instead of creating a dishonest perk, make it to where he can just teleport between fucking slot machines if he has something in his hand. It's that simple. You see the aura of the survivor farthest from you, you can immediately teleport to them and immediately start chase. I don't know why people go so fucking roundabout, dumbass ways to accomplish something that can be simply done. This perk is useless, by the way. House always wins. Get a token every time you get stunned. After obtaining 3 tokens, automatically consume all tokens to block all windows, pallets, and gens within your tear radius for 20 seconds. Is this a one-time thing, or is this they just stay blocked as long as they're in your tear radius? Also, this is pretty fucking useless. Blocking windows, pallets, and gens and all of that after you get stunned is pretty goddamn useless. Well, depending on how it's implemented. If it's literally just a one-time thing, as soon as you get the tokens, boom, everything that's in your tear radius at that time gets blocked. That's useless. Why is it useless? Because that survivor's just going to literally run out of your tear radius. You might get a hit in, you might make them use their dead heart or whatever, but they're just going to run to the next safe area and they're going to loop your ass through that shit. You've already fucked up and decreased your tear radius to. Ah, no, that was the last one that had the 24. So it's still 32 meters. And having this particular perk, you're going to have your main tear radius decrease substantially. Knowing this person, it probably lasts anything that's in your tear radius for that whole 20 seconds, and they're just going to boost the hell out of their fucking tear radius to like 40 meters and just block out everything. So the tear radius on this killer is going to be reduced, which means the speed of this particular killer, well, it can't take the reduced of speed. That's the problem too. The killer needs to have a reduced speed because of all of this, but the killer can't have a reduced speed because it's just basically a mouse one killer that gets a buff every once in a while. So you're kind of stuck. It's almost a catch 22. So no, I have to say the house always wins is no. Good Fallout reference though. So no. Scourge hooks in city. I wish you hadn't even used a scourge hook with this particular killer setup. It's abysmal. Again, you don't have the proper pressure to even use this. And now you're trying to use scourge hooks and things like that. It's not worthwhile. I want to knock this down before I even read this particular perk because it's not designed well for your killer. But we'll see. Each time a survivor is hooked on a scourge hook, transfer your tear radius. It's called Devout Devotion. Literally, Devout Devotion, or something like that. And you can use it on a hit to the obsession to transfer your tear radius to them. This literally just removes the obsession, makes it on a scourge hook. So when they're unhooked, you get the undetectable, and they have the tear radius applied to them. Which doesn't matter, by the way. Because if I pull somebody off of a scourge hook and I as soon as I do it, jig is up. And it'd be better to not transfer your tear radius to that survivor as long as they're hooked. It just grants you the undetectable status effect and just erase your tear radius. I mean, I could see you wanting to have your tear radius on the hook to make them unhook slower using the associated perks and things like that. However, that's just scumbaggy. You can be undetectable, so you can hide anywhere near the hook behind some shit. That person walks into your tear radius, which is their teammate's tear radius. And if they elect to run in and just do the thing, you can literally just walk up and grab them off the hook because you're undetectable. It's basically a more useful Insidious that relies on hook tunneling and things like that. Um, Obviously, this person, Millard, ain't listening to anything that other people are really saying. Because, I mean, all of this has been resaid and all of these comments and things are coming in. but if they've made or introduced no changes. So you got a stubborn ass person that don't have a lot of perks, that don't want to change their idea to make it worthwhile. And that's a shame. I've went over this before. Or at least I skipped this before. Yeah, it's the Reaper one. There's a perk called Fearmonger. Leave it alone. A DBD short story about Nemesis. Cascade of Insanity. Follow this in Ashley's perk change project. If this shit don't have any content in it, I'm skipping all the other things that are part of this. So your decision making is going to determine my decision making. You see how that works? Um, Alrighty then. I assume this is from lore or something that has happened. Or this is from a movie or some shit. I don't know. Let's see. Power. Ain't a lot. Perks. Very low. Survivor. Low perks. Map doesn't matter. Skins don't matter. Why is this on the bottom? 24-meter tear radius, 4.4 meters per second. I think you have here. They probably don't even watch my content. So I'm just going to make this simple instead of going over things extremely hard. Or not extremely hard. Going over the things I've already said. Lullaby Killer. 4.4 meters per second. A winding up hatchet. 3.08 meters per second. Air radius is 20 meters, but she has a lullaby that is 45 meters. So in order to have something small, like 20 meters worth of tear radius, there's also something that's extremely wide that exists 45 meters to let you know that she's in the area. Then we look at that slinger works. Dead Slinger. 32-meter tear radius. 4.4 meters per second movement speed. He has a gun that can shoot people, that can pull people all the way back over to him with a ranged attack. Then we will look at Trickster. Trickster. 4.4 meters per second. Air radius, 24 meters per second. Lullaby radius, 8 to 40 meters, depending on what he's using. Trickster throws blades. It takes 8 of those blades to hit you before you go down a health state. Throwing in main event, slowed down to 3.86, movement speed 4.4, tear radius 24 meters. Makes sense that he has slow because he has shit accuracy with his actual things that he's using. I think that's the last range killer that I'd really want to show because the rest ain't really worth it. But I just showed you 3 different examples of this particular range killer type that you could have. Your particular killer has 24 meters and 4.4 meters per second movement speed. Keep in mind, this is on par with the Trickster, which has a ranged attack, but his ranged attack is inaccurate as fuck. Unless you're running add-ons and a whole bunch of other things. It can be dodged. It's very hard to actually get those in unless you know where the knives are going to go. So your killer should be on par with something like the Trickster. The Trickster also has a lullaby that increases and decreases as well for that small amount of killer tear radius. This is why I always say stick with 4.4 meters per second and 28 meters of tear radius instead of dropping it to 24 or anything like that unless you have some caveat. Keep that in mind. Your killer as Identity Thief. When blending in, press the attack button while in a locker to change your outfit. Why not the power button? Again, or special, oh, excuse me, the secondary button. Why not use the secondary button when near a locker? Or whatever your interaction button is. You can use that button. You can use all kinds of buttons. You can use your whatever button you press to kick the pallet. You can use that button. Whatever button it takes to hide in lockers or check lockers, you can use that same button. Like the Huntress's hatchets and things like that. There's no distinction between them checking lockers versus them grabbing hatchets and all of that. It's an automatic thing. Use that same system. Stop trying to differentiate. When you're checking a locker, you'll hop in and you'll grab an outfit. If there's a survivor in it, you'll grab that survivor. You can even make it to where you'll take that survivor or a copy of that survivor's outfit and put it on. If you wanted to. Either way. Also, power. Psychotic tendencies. A mental state's the lowest point can be the most dangerous. That's not a fucking power. That's a power description. Take your power description and shove it up with your other fucking description. Put power description and then put what your actual fucking power is down there. I am so fucking tired of seeing somebody say power. Power is this, and then that's incorporated into that. Powers are tied to the fucking power button. If you're not using the power button to do anything about this, don't incorporate it. It's annoying. Nobody cares that the mental state at the lowest point can be the most dangerous. They want to see what the hell psychopathic tendencies are. Maybe start explaining what that shit is, instead of just putting down some power that has no description. This setup's starting to piss me off, and everybody's been adapting that. Stop going off of what Dead by Daylight does and go off a fucking creator's template. You are a creator, not a designer for behavior. Keep that in your thick head. When you put shit down, you don't list shit exactly like behavior does. You put in the extra details and you show the actual concept of your particular killer. If you can't do this simple thing, do not create anything. Do not post anything. Do not waste anybody's time. Do not waste the internet's time. Do not waste the server space. This is what this is coming into, is just being a waste of space. Stop doing this. You're not a designer for the game. You are a creator. Your creations need things to be specifically splayed out and say everything that you want your creation to do. This is unacceptable. Delete that shit. Make your special ability your power if it comes down to it. Blending in, you take outfits, but your face stays the same. What's the point? This isn't Agent 47. You can't change outfit and then keep face the same. People are going to instantly identify you as a killer and they're going to leave very quickly. And your killer is going to have to be the same size as the survivors, by the way, or this isn't going to work anyway. Does say average, at least we have that much. You can take survivors' outfits. You can blend in. I don't know how blending in is going to work when your face is literally not of the face of the survivor. I read a comment down below that said something about putting a mask on or something like that. But again, that's still going to show you that, you know, it's them. Plus, masks didn't go well because people are being racist on Bubba's Claudette face mask, so they can't do that anyway. So, um, the face, I mean, it'd just be a mimic. It'd just be a mimic killer, even if the face changed and all of that. So, I mean, you would have better standing if you just converted this into a mimic. Yeah, I'm actually not even gonna go over this. We got 33 posts. It's not a good idea. Just convert your concept into a mimic killer. Take out the bullshit and then continue to go. Again, first concept wasn't that good, so I'm not going over the other rest of the concepts. How that works. You're the one that did the Kandarian demon. Ah, that's why my brain has a dislike of you already in it. From the dirt. Here's another one. You're not putting any type of effort into your actual concepts. You're just throwing them out as you see fit. Take all of these bullshit concepts you have and combine them together and just create one post that you can continue to post on. When you update something in this forum, it updates to the top of the list. Like the one I commented on, it updates to the top of the list. So make one post that has all your dumbass ideas in it and just continue to post those ideas in one post. Two posts max. Range killers and like mouse one regular killers. You can separate those. And then add all of these ideas to a singular post so I don't have to keep coming across them. I would hate to have to block somebody because they're posting all over the place. My first killer concept, for real this time, I hope, the Inhabitant. There's a lack of confidence coming from the top of this, and I don't like it. You got 3,000 posts, so you should at least look. You have looked at the content like I've asked you to. You've played the game, you've looked at the content, you've looked at the other creation content and everything else on the forum. That is the only thing I ask people before they post something. He has done the requirements of it, so even if it is bad, I'm going to give him a full review. He's active on the community. He has a shit ton of posts. He's put time into it. This is the second plus time that he's posted something. So I'm going to give him the respect that he's due. Even if it's bad, I'll still go over it. Even if it's short, I'll still go over it. So let's see what we're looking at. Killer concept. What's the name of the killer fund? The Inhabitant. Oh. Oh, okay. The Inhabitant is the actual name of the killer. I thought he was making a joke. I'm sorry. So the Inhabitant. Fog hunt. The fog is your ally as the inhabitant of the realm. 30 seconds into the trial, most of the map will be doused in a thick layer of fog. Interesting. When a survivor is walking through the fog, they gain the oblivious and blindness status effects. That is way too powerful. Way, way, way too powerful. My question is, the way it makes it sound is the entire map is going to be doused in fog. So essentially, it's the same as like playing the old school add-ons, everybody playing that and it being the maximum amount of dense fog that can come from that. As survivors are in the fog, they have the oblivious and blindness status effect. People don't give a lot of respect to the oblivious and the blindness status effects. They don't respect that shit. They think it is a tool to just buff, what's going on. The oblivious status effect makes it to where you cannot perceive the killer's tear radius at all. So the killer can sneak up on you, do whatever it needs to do. You can still see the red stain, but you cannot see that particular tear radius. And that's what's important in this particular situation. Having the map casted in fog means that this killer will never, ever, 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 it does most of the map, so ever, ever be able to be detected by survivors. So essentially, this killer's tear radius is 0. Because most is more than half. So this killer will just be going from fog to fog. Unless there are intentional spots where the killer has to step into to give you, an update of the situation. So on the opposite of that, if it's going to be splotchy fog, then you need to increase this tear radius, significantly. So survivors know that he's in the area. Not too far to where it goes throughout the entire map, but it needs to, survivors need to get a general situation. If you're going to cover everything in fog like that and stay detective throughout the map whenever you are not in this particular fog. I do believe that the survivor should be able to get some sort of read on you. Whether it's your killer making a specific sound when they're out of the fog that keeps updating, whether it's or reading when you're not hidden in the fog, or something like that. There needs to be some caveat that lets survivors know where you are, since you are essentially stealth the entirety of the game. The reason I say this is because the blindness status effect that you're throwing on top of that. Any perks that survivors use that are based off of or reading or anything like that, and any game mechanic that is based off of that, the survivor will no longer see. That means if somebody gets knocked down, you'll see them initially falling down, but then they'll just disappear into the fog. If they hook somebody, you'll see them initially getting hooked, but where they're hooked won't ever exist. Blindness is an extremely powerful status effect. That's why Fearmonger is so good. If you're working on a generator while your other survivor friend gets hooked, you'll get that initial notification of where they're hooked at, and then whoop, you'll never see where they are again. So if you're not vigilant, or if you just don't care, you won't be able to save them in the future because you won't know where they're hooked at. That's why knockout's good. You can knock somebody down and then completely keep them hidden from their other survivor friends until they get close. So this is an extremely, extremely powerful perk. And because this is an extremely powerful perk, this killer is going to need to get nerfed as well. Because just reading from there to there, it's a mouse one killer that you can't detect unless they're close. But unlike Wraith, that, you know, takes time to uncloak, then gets a speed boost and all of that, this particular person is only identified by their red stain. But the fog's going to be so thick that you might not even be able to see the red stain. Having a mouse one killer that can't be detected by survivors is disgusting. I mean, I just think about the amount of survivors I sneak up on while playing as Ghostface and get easy grabs off of a gen because they just don't have time to react. They're working on a gen, I come around the corner and I grab them before they can even let go of the button or try the run. It's just kind of, whoop, I got you. And be able to maintain that throughout all of that. It's crazy. There needs to be something thrown. Like if you're in a chase, your tear radius comes back or something, like something needs to, for survivors will know where you are. There needs to be something available. Or it's just going to be a gen pool fest. Somebody goes to save somebody off the hook. The killer can just hide till that survivor gets close, walk up behind them and pick them up as they're trying to pull off a hook. Then disappear into the fog again. When walking through the fog, the inhabitant gains the undetectable status effect. So what? So not only is he undetectable anytime he walks through the fog, the survivors are oblivious and blind when they exist inside of the fog. So one, fog cannot go anywhere around generators. So the towels, inside of towels, in and around towels, and generators, fog cannot exist. And then the killer's tear radius is going to have to be increased exponentially. So when somebody is being chased in a towel or something like that, the rest of the map's alerted to where the killer is. So yeah, fog's gonna have to have a large amount of limits of where it can go. So if you were running around in the outside area of the map, then you're going to be affected or afflicted with those types of status effects, aka moving between gens or breaking. Well, they can't go around totems either. But yeah, as long as you're moving throughout the map and not doing anything, you'll remain oblivious and blind. But if you are actively doing something, then you won't have those status effects because you'll be either within a tile or a tile piece. That's some don't starve shit. I'm gonna call it a set piece. But you're gonna be within a loop, or you're going to be on a gen or something like that. So, yeah. Within a pretty hardy area of gens, set pieces, and things like that, the fog's not going to be able to exist. And that's going to bring a sort of a damper on the particular killer, and it's gonna, gonna suck, but it is what it is. If a survivor's on a hook, obviously the fog can't exist around it, because, well, that's bullshit. Alright, gotcha. Special ability Smog summons a dense cloud of fog on your location. What's the point if the whole map's incorporated in that except for, set pieces and things like that? There's no need to summon Smog. Unless you literally hook a survivor, put Smog over them, and you're planning on tunneling and camping. Special attack Fog Crawl. Crouch. Release button to lunge forward and damage any survivors in range. This is a tunneling killer. You're meant to take a survivor down, put Smog over them, and then crouch. And as a survivor rescues them, use that fancy ass attack to re-down both of them if possible. If not, you land. Well, you want to hit the survivor as they're going for an unhook, and if they elect to do it, you want to pounce and get that down again. There's no cooldown on the pounce, so you might want to just pounce on them as they're going for the unhook and then pounce again to hit both. You'll have a down and somebody if they have borrowed time. That timer already gone, and the other person will be downed anyway. Yeah, this is a camping killer. The smog and all of that crap around the entire map just makes it to where you don't know where they're camping at or tunneling at in any time, shape, or form. But this killer gets all of its power from finding a survivor, quickly downing or gin pulling a survivor, hooking them on a hook, and then camping the shit out of them. That's it. That's it. They'll never see you coming. They'll never hear you coming. They'll be blinded, so they have to essentially immediately go for an unhook or risk losing the location of that particular survivor they're trying to unhook. And if the killer sees them running around looking for the hook and finding it, all he has to do is just ambush them. After being stunned by a pallet, 2 gens in the trial are blocked for 30 seconds. When breaking a pallet, 2 gens in the trial are damaged and immediately lose 3% regression. Dumb as fuck and shouldn't be incorporated. I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's a bad perk for this killer, definitely. And how are you gonna block generators for 30 whole seconds and then make it to when you break any pellet on the match, generators are gonna lose 3%? That's crazy. I mean, it's only 2, but still, that's crazy. X, pack tactics. This also has no power, or this doesn't assist your killer at all. Your camping killer. After you get past that first little hook and all of that, That's gonna be the end of it. Your killer has no power, or has no power when it comes to any type of, downing a survivor, hooking them, going after another survivor, downing them, hooking them. Your killer has no power for that shit. It has a lot of map pressure, so it fulfills one of the checks. But it has no gen pressure, no chase pressure, just has a lot of map pressure. Because survivors can't see or ascertain your location. Unless they literally see you walking, you're basically invisible. So the only thing you can do is use that pseudo invisibility or undetectable status effect, the tunnel. Tunnel and camp. Tunnel and camp. Tunnel and camp. So your strengths are going to be any survivor that you can get hooked and then camp. So anybody that's altruistic, you'll dominate. But if the team says, fuck it, let's do gens and treats you like a basement camping Bubba, you're fucked. That's the end of it. Pack tactics. Any survivor within 48 meters of the token cannot leave the radius. If this token is blessed by a healthy survivor, the survivor who blessed it will be injured. You cannot have a hex that prevents survivors from leaving the hex. That is fucking stupid. Yep, this hex roots you in place until you find it and break it. Good luck. Oh man, all survivors spawn together in this rare scenario where somebody either played a Shroud of Binding or, you got just a shit spawn. Or even two survivors spawn together over there near that shit. Well, damn, that's a shame. They can't leave. Oh, the killer's on his way over to check that shit? Oh no, the killer's here? What do we do? The killer's blocking the totem and we can't leave. What do we do? Time to fucking DC and rage quit. I mean, did you even think about the exploitation this is gonna have? As long as they can't break the totem, they can't leave. So, worst case scenario, if you put this particular hex on anything like, Hag, for example, or even Trapper in some cases, but more importantly, Hag, that has the radius of everything covered, you can keep them trapped there perpetually. Put a trap down, walk over, chase another survivor, or vice versa, down both the survivors in that particular area, and then leave. Because if their teammates pick them up, guess what? That teammate can't fucking leave either. So even worst case scenario, you down a survivor, you pick them up, you drop them in that totem's radius. The teammate that goes to revive them gets trapped in that totem's radius. So it's very easy to get two people trapped in that particular radius. After that, you got two people there. If you down the two people in that particular radius, you know a third person's going to try to run and either break the totem or try to get his buddies up. Then you got three people there. Once you have three people there, that's a win. You can let the fourth person do the rest of the gens and escape. Will they? Probably not. They'll either rage quit or they'll say fuck it and walk to you and just say end it, brother. Some people have, the resilience to do all five generators and then, escape. It'll give you a double pit probably, but I mean, some people do have that determination and they'll do it. But I mean, after you down the other three survivors, all you need to do is put another symbol down over that shit. But I think they made it to where crawling survivors can activate traps now. They either took it away or they made it a thing. I don't remember. I think they added a thing to where crawling survivors can activate traps. So you would have to, I mean, continuously look at that particular totem to make sure, that other person ain't there. If that person works or walks in there, the game's trapped. The killer can literally sit between the survivors and the tokens, even if they're all healthy, and just sit there if it's a good spawn. And the survivors can't do anything but rage quit or sit there for hours and hours and hours, and the game's held hostage. Not good. Gorge hook. Hack hunt. Each time a survivor is hooked on a scourge hook, the following effects apply. 3 random generators will have a 32-meter tear radius attached to them, and you gain the undetectable status effect. Useless for your killer. You keep applying the undetectable status effect in every single situation. So what I have surmised from looking at all of this is that you don't even give a shit about this particular killer. This killer is just a gag. You want these particular perks or your main killer that you use in regular Dead by Daylight, and this is your way of pushing your agenda through. So I can applaud you for your effort in trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, but these are not well-designed perks or anything like that, and this isn't a well-designed killer aspect. It needs a more time and effort put into this. And here's some extra things in the bottom. So my final thoughts on this is this could be an interesting killer with an interesting power, but you really need to go back in to the fine details and design things to make it fair for everybody. And think about all the effects, status effects, and things like that that you're throwing, plus the density of the fog, etc., etc. Keep in mind the perks that already exist in the game that you can stack with this build to make this an even stronger fucking unstoppable build as well, and a lot of other things. It's too strong. This needs a hard nerf on Fog Hunt. And then the perks, again, should be designed to help your particular killer, the Inhabitant. That particular killer, not other killers in the game. So design your perks to help your killer. And then you have a lot of feedback, for better or for worse. I'm not going to read through all of that. Hopefully you get some sort of something. Some good feedback or something that'll help you push you to the next stage here. That's about half of the list done, especially after I'd taken out all of Ivory's things. So I will save the other half of the list for another time. So thank you for stopping by, and as always, supplement your lifestyle, and I will see you next time. Food's gonna take another couple of hours to be done, so I guess I'll switch to Rocket League in a couple of minutes. I am gonna take a break though, so for now, peace.